Back to football. Suspended Cleveland Browns defensive end Myles Garrett met with the NFL yesterday about his reinstatement into the league, sources confirmed to us at ESPN. According to Cleveland.com, which first reported the news, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell was in attendance at the meeting.
The NFL is looking for him to show contrition, to say that he embarrassed himself, his team, the league, and that it won't happen again. The NFL feels like it took one of the stars of the game off the field. It's not looking to do that anymore. That was always the idea when it handed out the stiff suspension that it did last year. So assuming that it went as well as it sounded like, I would expect that Myles Garrett winds up getting reinstated. But I think Myles Garrett plays the majority, if not all, of the 2020 season.
All right, so that was Shefty on SportsCenter last night. Let me bring it out to my guys here. First of all, Jeff Darlington, what, if anything, can you tell us about this process and about what the Browns or anyone else's expectations are?
I hate to say it, but not much at this point. Quite frankly, it's in the hands of the NFL. What I will say is that when we hear the term indefinite suspension, it is exactly what the NFL wants it to be. They want to deflect. They want to project it out into the future, and that's where we now stand. And, I think there was an expectation, Bobby, that it was going to be somewhere in the line of 6 to 8 games, maybe when you tried to really hash it out. Not the lifetime ban that maybe the irrational judgment initially thought it to be. But I could see them just saying, we'll let him back week 1.
And so you looked at that. I think they wanted to push this out to the offseason, so you're not dealing with it in the midst of the playoffs. You're not dealing with it in the midst of the Super Bowl. They don't want to carry this over into 2020, Greeny, have us be talking about it leading into training camp. I would anticipate that he'll get reinstated. He's a good guy. He doesn't have any history with any of these things, so I think that's the biggest piece. This isn't a situation where he's a repeat offender. This isn't Vontaze Burfict, who's been out headhunting for years and has been warned. There's no history of this. There's no pattern of behavior, and because of that, you show contrition, you do some things, we'll give you a conditional reinstatement.
He had some flags for late hits on the quarterback, that kind of thing, which is obviously not the same thing.
But you know what's funny, Greeny? It's like part of me wants to make a joke about the fact, what do you expect him to do when he goes in the commissioner's office? Be like, I might do this again. Of course he's going to be contrite.
Right.
That said, there's a lot of meetings that happen in that office that you'd be fascinated to learn that the guy walks in there and be like, I didn't do anything wrong and I'm not apologizing.
Here's the complicated part of this for me, and this is what I tried to bring up as soon as it occurred to me. We were on the day after this happened. It might not have been until the following week that this part of it entered my mind. There happened to be 6 games left in the season when this happened.
Right.
That's a very convenient number as we sit and look at it now. Had there been 3 games left in the season, because whatever they do here, they are to some degree setting a precedent, right? You take your helmet off and hit someone in the head with it on a football field. This is what the punishment is going to be. So have we decided it's 6 games? We were talking about a full year. We were talking about whether or not they should involve law enforcement on the day after this happened. I get it that cooler heads prevail. But what we are deciding is that 6 games is going to be the number if that's what they leave it at, based solely, I think, upon the fact that that's how many games were left on the schedule.
There was 6 games left, but then they also said this, it was going to include potential playoffs, so the remainder of the season. So Cleveland at that point in time still had a pathway to get into the playoffs. So 6 games sounds about right. If they would have maybe potentially made the playoffs, you could have lopped on a 7th or 8th in there. And then I think they give themselves enough leeway to where they don't think they're coming down.
What I'm trying to say is, if this happened week 3, would it be a 6-week suspension and be back in week 10? I don't think that's the way it would go.
You make a fantastic point when it comes to precedent, because it's not a team punishment. You're not punishing a guy, if he made the playoffs, that he gets those suspension. To that point, you're setting a precedent for hitting a guy in the head with his helmet.
Right.
And I don't know that 6 games is enough. You just completely changed my mind.
Well, that's the thing, is that, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything. It happened to be a very, looking back on it, a very convenient way to do it. We suspend him for the rest of the year, let him come in, show contrition, we bring him back. But the reality is, if this had happened week 3, I don't think we would have seen Myles Garrett the rest of the season at all. So now all of a sudden it would have become a 13-game suspension. That's the part of this that I think is complicated as they try and figure out how to finish this thing.
Precedent is a very important element that I definitely was not thinking about.
And I guess if you look at all the things, and all the suspensions that we have, and the things that happen off the field, and all of that different stuff, 6 games seems to fit in that box. It seemed to work out really well for the NFL. And heaven forbid something like this happens going forward, then they at least have that 6 games, Greeny, to kind of lean back on.
Perhaps. All right, we'll see. Once again, meanwhile, this year we will have coverage from the NFL Scouting Combine at Lucas Oil, February 27th through March 1st. NFL Live will have reports that week on ESPN. NFL Network will have their usual full coverage. All the coverage is also available on the ESPN app, so you can watch from anywhere. Laura.
Let's run the floor with Sean Farnham, and we begin with D'Angelo Russell, who had 22 points and 5 assists in his Timberwolves debut. Not enough to cool off those red-hot Raptors. Some people, Sean, didn't see him coming, but are they the biggest threat to the Bucks in the East?
No, this schedule during this period of time has been one of the weakest we've seen in NBA history. Now, that doesn't take away the fact that they've won 15 consecutive games, but it does. All right, so I'm not ready to put them in the class of the Milwaukee Bucks yet.
All right, so you're telling me to pump the brakes. Okay, Warriors honored Andre Iguodala before his first game back in the Bay Area last night. That was nice to see. And Iggy and fellow Heat newcomer Jay Crowder helped lead Miami to a win. What kind of impact do you see those two having for the Heat?
Look, I think the Heat and the strides that they've made already this season from where they were a year ago has been dramatic. I think Jay Crowder is going to have a larger impact on the court than Andre Iguodala is, but I think his leadership and some of his intangibles are going to pay off.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's been huge there for real. Okay, Pelicans officially listing rookie Zion Williamson as probable for tonight's game against the Blazers. Zion missed the one game after spraining his left ankle last Thursday, but he declared himself, quote, ready to go after being a full participant in Monday's practice. That's good news for New Orleans because when Zion has been active, their level of play has gone up exponentially. Before Zion debuted, they were in the bottom third of the league in paint points per game, and since then, they rank third in the NBA. So, Sean, it's been so much fun to watch him on the court in his debut. And look, it's been such a short period of time that we've even seen him play. What is his impact so far on the floor, you think?
Yeah, it's a small sample size that we're dealing with here, but I think that you see the impact in those numbers. He impacts the game offensively and defensively, and it's not just about when he's scoring the basketball. Take this play, for example. He's being guarded by Giannis. Watch as he clears out and vacates a spot. You come off the on-ball screen. Lonzo Ball reads the defense perfectly. Giannis sees Brandon Ingram and goes, you know what? Nope, I can't leave Zion Williamson. It opens up the paint for everybody else. And then defensively, he is such a unique talent. We saw this at Duke time and time again. On-ball screen situation, how do you defend it? That is James Harden coming off this screen. He's now out on him. He knows that James Harden's going to go left. Look how he stays in front of him, cuts him off, forces him to give the ball up. That allows Holiday to pinch, show, and then force a contested shot in the middle of the paint by Russell Westbrook. This is the change. Let's just put things into perspective here on Zion Williamson. When he's out on the floor per 100 possessions, they're plus 11. Do you know what that equals as far as wins go? 70 wins. It's like Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I'm not saying the Pelicans are going to get there, but his impact when he's on the floor, he makes this team a playoff team.
Okay, so all that considered, how good of a pro do you project Zion to be?
I think here's where he is. I don't think he's this generational talent, but what I do believe is that he's a player that can dramatically change a franchise and that you need to have out on the floor because his athleticism, his skill set, and how unique he is makes him a player that is a force. My only concern with him, and it's the concern that we always talk about with him, is longevity, injuries. Can he sustain his health?
What have you seen from that standpoint so far in this limited sample size? You watched him a ton in college. How do you think he is kind of managing his body and trying to stay healthy?
I think he still needs to lose some weight. Look, maintain his strength, lose some of his weight, because, again, the impact that we've talked about all the time, whether it was Jay Will after his debut on this show talking about how he lands. When you're in traffic, you're that big, and your game is dependent upon your ability to elevate and get above everybody else. You make yourself more susceptible to lower extremity injuries. And that's what we're going to continue to focus on with him. But all of us obviously hope that he stays on the floor because what we've seen now is Brandon Ingram, who struggled playing with him early, has figured out how to play off of him, and that bodes well for the Pelicans.
Yeah, good to see that Zion back healthy. We'll see him play again. Okay, the crossover is back for a 7th year, Wednesday and Thursday on ESPN and the ESPN app. Once again, we're pairing a college analyst with an NBA analyst for twice the basketball breakdowns. You see it here. Doris Burke and LaFonso Ellis have Bucks Pacers, Jeff Van Gundy, Jay Billis doing Lakers Nuggets. Doris Burke is back the next night for Memphis Cincinnati along with Bryce Drew. Mark Jackson teams up with Bill Walton for Colorado, Oregon. You even see Adam Schefter in there. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. All right, plenty more football to come on Get Up this morning. He got good news on the hip as he has consistently been getting. What a healthy Tua Tagovailoa means for the draft. The ripples could be enormous.